rolling. It's the confidence for me, the ambience for me, the nerve that I have to walk around here looking like a compliment for me. I go by Big Daddy, I go by Fine as Hell, I go by Choosy Love.
Peace, family, and welcome back to a very special, a very tasty, a rather delicious, a few I bet you didn't know, very special Conjure Corner, brought to you by one of our blackest of blackety black holidays that we have a part of our culture, Juneteenth. But before we jump into this deliciousness, let's jump into what Juneteenth is about, shall we? We'll be right back, y'all.
I find competing narratives about Galveston and Juneteenth. At one point, it was declared the place where General Gordon Granger triumphantly read his order announcing freedom. But that account has been debunked as a myth created to offer a more heroic story to this iconic structure. As I sit with the complexities of Galveston, I reflect on why we often find it so tempting to gloss over parts of history to make it more palatable. To better discern fact from fiction, I met up with DJ Cox, a local author who wrote the book Dispelling Myths about Juneteenth.
There's this perception that nobody knew the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued, but they were fully aware of it. The enslaved people may not have known. Right. But what they knew was irrelevant because they could not emancipate themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been in slavery all that time. You know? Right. And so the mentality of the state seemed to have been, if you want them, you're going to have to come here and get them, because we're not going to let them go.
Lawrence Thomas told me about that legacy firsthand. Lawrence is a native Galvestonian whose family members experienced freedom 2.5 years late. Lawrence's father reinstituted Juneteenth celebrations here over 40 years ago.
How long has your family been in Galveston?
Since 1852. My great-great-grandfather was a slave to Rebecca Flugel, which was Michelle Menard, fourth wife.
Michelle Menard, who's that?
That is the founder of Galveston. And he, at that time, he owned my great-great-grandfather. Right now, we're at the actual house that Michelle Menard and my great-great-grandfather lived in. The slave quarters was in the back.
So this is actually where they would have worked?
This is actually where they were. Yeah, this is actually the house.
Do you know what your family did for the Menards?
No. I think it was just a typical slave.
And what was your great-great-grandfather's name?
His name was John Thomas Flugel Menard.
Okay, so he took the name of Menard.
Yes, part of how you identify a slave.
Okay.
So once he got here, Menard got added. My great-great-grandfather had 2 kids.
Right.
He had William Menard Thomas. He put the slave name back in there so we can remember.
Why do you think it was important for him to say we want to remember where we came from or remember this dark history?
Because it was basically against the law to know any history. We're still trying to go back now, to go back a little further to find out a little bit further, but it's so difficult.
We're literally at the house of the founder of Galveston. Yes. Do you feel like your family helped build Galveston?
Oh, most definitely. But thank God my dad's not here, because you wouldn't be interviewing me, you'd be interviewing him. You'd be getting the earful of that. We built this city.
To hear "we built this city" reveals a well-earned pride in the midst of all this painful history.
The Emancipation Proclamation is signed and goes into effect right in the middle of the Civil War in 1863.
Correct.
Does that change anything for your ancestors here in Texas?
No, they were still doing the same thing. It was nothing changed. And of course, during that time, it wasn't no Wi-Fi or all that stuff going on. So they did not have a clue. Right. They did not have a clue.
So when does that change? Yeah.
That changes in 1865 when Gordon Granger came to Galveston. Okay. And that's when they all got a chance to go hear that little speech.
I've never met someone like Lawrence. He knows exactly who enslaved his family and when they were freed. June 19, 1865. As we sit on the porch his ancestors built, I can feel his sense of ownership of the place and how knowing his history has empowered him and his family to create a home here to both mourn the past and celebrate freedom.
And so today is a day of liberation and a day of freedom, a day where our ancestors learned that we were finally free men and women and free to go out and curate whatever manner of lives that we sought for ourselves. And so today we honor our ancestors that came before us, those who paved the way in spirituality, those who paved the way politically, okay, those who came before us and were the revolutionaries of our time. And we choose to live on and to continue to venerate those ancestors as they help us to honor ourselves in this lifetime and continue to find freedom in every walk of life that we find ourselves on. Happy Juneteenth, y'all. Now, many of you are probably like, Rue, why are you standing in front of baking supplies? Well, guys, we don't only honor our ancestors, and I don't only believe that Conjure takes place at our altar spaces. I believe Conjure is found in ritual, and magic is found in every minuscule and every major activity that we wake up and that we operate in. From sitting at your altars, writing down your petitions and your rituals, or simply coming into the kitchen and cooking a meal or a dessert that our ancestors revered culturally as a part of who we are, right? So here at my sanctuary, we are going to be honoring our ancestors for the rest of this week, and the ways in which I choose to honor the spirit of Juneteenth and honor the spirit of our ancestors is by jumping into a little Conjure cooking, right? One of my most favorite cakes, for those of you who know, I've lived so many different lives, right? And I've worn so many different hats. But here today, I'm reaching deep back into my bag of talents, and I am pulling out my talent of baking. Those of you who may have known me years ago will know that I originally started my entrepreneurial journey as a baker, selling my sweets with the business called Beat Sweets, where I beat faces and beat sugar, okay? And so while I was beating faces, honey, and beating sugar, I mastered one of my most favorite cakes, and it may also be one of your most favorite cakes. But during the studying and delving deeper into the history of Juneteenth, I learned that one of my most favorite cakes is held and revered so deeply in the cultural foods that we and our family found ourselves serving. And if we look back culturally at the foods that our ancestors loved the most, you will find this cake a lot at our dinners, around the tables with families, but you will also find it today as it is super popular among every baker. But then you also have some people who hate this cake, but you're gonna love mine. Watch this.
Lastly, another red food that has its roots in African American culture is red velvet cake. This dessert was believed to be originated in the 1880s as a luxury food for wealthy plantation owners in the South. It is thought that red velvet cake is an adaptation of a European cake that used beetroot to color the cake. Over time, the distinctive flavor and color became a symbol of celebration. Its red hue is said to be homage to the blood shed by slaves during that period. Surprisingly, the original hue of red velvet cake was not as vivid as it is today. It originally had a reddish-brown tint due to the chemical reaction between the brown sugar, the buttermilk, and the vinegar. Food coloring was later added to the recipe to give it its distinct color, although the exact time and place of its introduction is unknown. But one theory is that red velvet cake made its debut at the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan in 1959. Another is that a housewife dissatisfied with the color of the cake added red food coloring to the batter. Another theory is that a baker created a vivid red color in order to make a profit from the cake on Valentine's Day. Regardless of how the color came about, after emancipation, red velvet cake became a popular treat and is now associated with the holiday. The legacy of Juneteenth foods is a rich and vibrant one. From pit barbecue to watermelon to red velvet cake, Juneteenth is a holiday that brings people together as a reminder of the strength and beauty of African Americans. Although its origins of the holiday are rooted in sorrow, Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom, and it can be felt with every single Juneteenth celebration.
I bet you didn't know that red velvet cake was so special to the Black community, or that we've really always been moving the needle of the culture no matter how far you go back and find us. We are the culture, okay? And so is red velvet, okay? Now, let me jump in really quickly and tell you guys what it is that you are going to need in order to make my Juneteenth red velvet deliciousness, okay? You are going to need 2 cups of sugar. You're going to need some vegetable oil, some coffee, baking soda, vanilla, cocoa powder, vinegar, flour, all of your traditional ingredients that go inside of red velvet. But we are going to be actually honoring our ancestors with making our red food coloring, okay? Am I festive? Am I festive? If I was a piece of red velvet cake, would you eat me? Because I would, okay? Now, red velvet is one of my most favorite cakes. And not to toot my own horn, beep beep. Now, I'm not going to be using your traditional red food coloring, because those of you who are a little bit more health conscious like I am, and like many other people, we are finding ourselves moving away from artificial dyes. And so red food coloring is usually an agent that you would use in red velvet cake to make the cake or give the cake that beautiful bright red color. And so today we're going to be working a little bit more closely with the red hibiscus flower, and we're going to pull this deep red color out of this hibiscus flower. But I want to really reinforce this red even more, and I'm going to add beet to it. And so we're going to make a water reduction. 2 cups of water. I'm going to start with 2 cups of water, and we are going to cook that water substitute down until we achieve a really deep red color that feels right. Now, I've never done this before, honey. This is an inspiration of the ancestors, as I was thinking about how can we achieve this color without using red food coloring. And so hibiscus was an integral part of our Juneteenth celebrations. When we would get together and eat dinner, we found ways to incorporate hibiscus and the color of hibiscus into drinks or into food. And also, the original color of red velvet cake wasn't that bright red. That didn't come until much later, okay?
Finally, the tradition of red foods and drink were another major way to commemorate Juneteenth. The practice can be traced back to West African origins. Historians believe that the symbolic meaning of the color red can also be associated with strength, spirituality, and life and death in many West African cultures, and that enslaved people brought that with them across the Atlantic alongside their knowledge of food. 2 West African plants, the kola nut and the hibiscus, were imported to the Caribbean and the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade. Slave owners observed the kola nut being used as an energizer and a digestive or cold remedy, while the hibiscus flowers were steeped to make a reddish purple tea called bissap. When the kola nut was crushed into a powder and then added to water, it created a reddish brown refreshing drink. The practice of adding red hue ingredients to make a sweet, palatable drink was common, particularly in the southern United States. After emancipation, Black families often prepared homemade teas and lemonade that were infused with cherries or strawberries or other red fruits. Additionally, they would also preserve these fruits in a syrup made of vinegar or water, which could then be further sweetened and mixed with other beverages. By the late 1880s, food coloring became widely available and was used to create sodas like the Texas-made Big Red, and then carbonated drinks quickly became a popular part of Juneteenth culinary culture.
We're not going to hyperfixate too much on trying to achieve that super bright red color that you're used to seeing in red velvet cake, which usually comes from artificial food coloring. But we're going to try and achieve some level of red. And again, traditional red velvet cake from back in the day was not focused on achieving that super bright red that came later on throughout the years when red food coloring was introduced. Originally, red velvet cake more so focused on this deep brown reddish color, which usually came in through the burning of the sugars as the cake cooked. And so we're going to make our own food coloring, and we're going to see how that pans out in this recipe. I've never tried it before, but I'm excited, and we're honoring the ancestors.
Bad bitches to the left, money bitches to the right. You can be both, meet in the middle, dance all night. Take it all out, or just a little if you like. It's pure. It should cost $1 billion to look this good. But she make it look easy because she got it. Check my technique.
Hey guys, so I just want to show you guys the food coloring. It hasn't even been in here long, and you can already see that beautiful red color already coming through. And so as we reduce the liquid that's in here, this red is going to get even brighter. Okay, and so this is the way in which our ancestors made their own food colorings, especially red, in order to use as a coloring agent, free of chemicals and additives and all the other funky things that we find in things like food coloring. And so here we are avoiding that red dye 40, and we are making our own food coloring. May the ancestors be proud. Okay, so let's let that continue to reduce, y'all. So while that is getting and going, I want you guys to make your buttermilk, because you're going to need this for the recipe. Now, you can always buy buttermilk, you know, on its own. Wonderful. I am going to be making my own buttermilk from scratch. Super easy. You can either use vinegar to curd the milk, or you can use lemon juice to curd the milk. And so for the buttermilk amount, you only want 1 cup of buttermilk. So I'm going to add 1 cup of buttermilk to this, and maybe 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Okay, just enough to curd the milk. You can use fresh lemon juice, or you can use the concentrated lemon juice. I am just going to use concentrated. I've made this recipe so many times that I really am just eyeballing certain things or certain ingredients as it relates to making this cake. The other ingredients, you want to make sure that your measurements are as straightforward as I give them to you, to not mess up the cake in the way that it bakes. Okay, stir it a little. You'll already start to really see it curd. Once you have the lemon juice and milk mixture, you just want to put it off to the side and let it do its thing. Okay, also quick tip in the ways of our ancestors: if you clean as you go, the mess that you leave behind won't feel so overwhelming if you just clean as you go. So let's tidy up, and I'll be right back. Okay, we have our buttermilk going, we have our food coloring going, and we have our water for our coffee going. The next step that I want you to do is get these pans greased. I am going to be using, this is going to make a decent amount of batter when you make this cake. And so I am going to be using 2 9-inch round pans. You can choose which pans you want to use. But keep in mind that this does make a decent amount of batter, and so you'll definitely need more than one pan. You can do them if you don't want to do the round pans of cake. Cut them down, baby, and make cupcakes. Okay, get a cupcake pan and treat it like cupcakes and make a bunch of cupcakes. Either way, we gonna eat this cake. Okay. If you're like me and you want to take some extra precautions to make sure that your cake doesn't stick to the pans and that they come out extra clean, I am going to suggest that you use some good old parchment paper. Judge your mother on her cutting skills and not mine. And if you're talking about my cutting skills, you're anti-black. And that's a horrible thing to be on Juneteenth, guys. Pans are ready. When I did a small bid at the Art Institute for culinary school, I learned this little thing called mise en place. And so that simply means to get all your shit in order so that it makes your process of cooking go a lot faster. And so that's what we've been doing, guys. Mise en place. Okay, babies, let's jump into our dry ingredients. Okay, we are going to do this strategically because this is going to ensure that we have a beautiful texture when it comes to the texture of the red velvet cake, making sure that it's moist and soft and not crumbly and dry, because there's nothing worse than a dry ass red velvet. And if you're making a red velvet that's dry, y'all need to go back and reconsider the ancestors. And when you taste your red velvet cake and you ask yourself, what the ancestors like this? And your ancestors no, you need to go on and try it again. Dry ingredients, everybody. Flour, cocoa powder, salt, baking soda, and baking powder. Okay, and we're going to need 2 cups of flour, and everything else is teaspoons. Okay, so you're going to jump into your flour. You need 2 cups of flour. Okay, so let's go on and get our 2 cups of flour. How can we do this? You're going to need 2 cups of flour. I just poured my flour in here to make it easier. Okay, so 2 cups of flour. Don't pack it. Keep it kind of light and fluffy in your measuring cup. Okay, you don't want to pack it because it's going to dry the cake. Okay, so we have our 2 cups of flour already in here. You want to go in with a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, so I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon. So when you guys see me going in 4 times, it's not 4 teaspoons, it's just 1 teaspoon. And so you want 1 teaspoon of baking soda. You want 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Then you want 1 teaspoon of salt, okay? Okay, so we got some 4 teaspoons of that. And then last to your dry mixture, you want to add 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, okay? Of unsweetened cocoa powder to the dry mixture, okay? No more, no less. This is not chocolate cake. Okay. And mix it together, and we're moving on. Okay, so this is what you want your dry mixture to look like. As you guys can see, it is not super dark. It does not look chocolate. It's just lightly coated, okay? So set your dry ingredients to the side, and let's move on to the wet ingredients. Okay, family, we are back, and we are moving on to our wet ingredients, okay? We have our dry ingredients to the side. Let's keep going to your mixing bowl. I am using my KitchenAid mixer. You can also use a hand mixer. Use whatever you have on site, okay? And so to my mixer, I am going to add 2 cups of sugar. Okay, I'm kind of eyeballing this, guys, because it really is about 2 cups measured, okay? Your 2 cups of sugar, and then 1 cup of vegetable oil, okay? We're going to do 1 cup of vegetable oil, and we are going to cream this together, just the sugar and the oil, until we get it to a beautiful creamy consistency, okay?
It's pure. Bad bitches to the left. Money bitches to the right. You can be both, meet in the middle, dance all night. Take it all off, or just a little if you like. It's pure. It should cost $1 billion to look this good. But she make it look easy because she got it. Check my technique. You can find the one when the tempo good. Wanna touch my technique?
I told you guys to go ahead and cream together your 2 cups of white sugar with your 1 cup of oil, and you wanted to cream that together until it became a beautiful creamy consistency. Trust me, you'll know it when it happens. And so to our wet ingredients, we're now going to add in the rest of our wet mixture. And so to the sugar and oil, we're going to add in 2 room temperature eggs. We're going to go in with that buttermilk that we made earlier, okay? We're going to go in with some vanilla extract or essence if you have it. I'm always down for some fresh vanilla bean too. Chef's kiss. And then we are going to incorporate that hibiscus and beet food coloring that we made to color this red velvet. Oh, so
Rolling. It's the confidence for me, the ambience for me, the nerve that I have to walk around here looking like a compliment for me. I go by Big Daddy, I go by Fine as Hell, I go by Choosy Lover, the fine dime picker, new groupie getter, the hoochie hugger. Call me sexy, call me your wildest dreams, call me handsome, darling. My features properly conduct themselves. I look like manners, darling. I'm beautiful, my skin tone is rich and pretty. I'm guapo, I look like well done, I look like good job, I look like bravo. This perfection in the flesh, and it's the epitome of God's image. I use my face as an active resume and get jobs with it. I look like ooh wee, I look like fuck it up, I look like you better. I look like somebody chose you but saw me and said I like you better. Oh, I'm cute, Jesus, I'm sexy, my God, I'm vibrant. I'm a cross between attractive and elegant. I'm a hybrid, girl, I'm such a stud. A dream come true and what they can't wait to see. I look like when you get your check, you should bring it straight to me. I'm easy on the eyes, I'm a sight that they sit and pray to see. I'm resources, I'm goods and services, they should pay for me. I look like there it is, I look like no you didn't, yes he did. I look enticing, I look superb, look like I bet he is. Appealing is my middle name and gorgeous is my first, so let me cordially report that I'm adorable. Insert another synonym, I look delightful, scratch that, I'm 10 of them. I smell like warm vanilla, cocoa, butter, shea, and cinnamon. I look dazzling, I look delectable, I look delicate, I'm pulchritudinous, I'm in.
we have our wet mixture almost where we want it to be. You want to go back and you want to grab that 1/2 cup of coffee, okay? And you're going to also want a teaspoon of white vinegar, okay? Once you grab that hot coffee, You're going to take it and you're going to add it to your wet mixture. Okay, the coffee is really going to give your mixture, or your cake rather, a very moist and just delectable texture. Okay. And once you put that in there with a teaspoon of white vinegar, that teaspoon of white vinegar, okay? And then once you have all of that in your wet ingredients, you want to begin slowly adding in the dry ingredients until it mixes. You don't want to over mix. You just want to mix it till everything is incorporated. So a few lumps and it not looking perfect is lets you know that it's perfect, okay? Because you don't want to over mix it and then you change the texture of the cake, okay? Break down those sides of the bowl. Make sure that you get all of the batter off of your paddle, okay? Make sure that everything is incorporated, and then you want to get your batter into your greased cake pans, and you want to let them sit for maybe about 10 minutes, okay? Just to let everything really incorporate itself. And you're going to begin to see little bubbles start to appear on the top. And once you see the bubbles appear, you know that you're ready to put it in the oven, okay? You're going to bake this slow and low at 325, okay? So get your oven preheated. And you're going to want to cook it for, watch it, but maybe about 30 minutes. But make sure that you're watching it and checking it. Make sure that you're paying attention to your oven as well, okay?
Without a woman, no. Woman to woman, I just wanna see you go. Tell her what's up.
So we obtained this beautiful, beautiful caramelized brown color to our red velvet cake. And honestly, she's just as beautiful as she would be if she was red. You can see all those caramelized sugars and how they have solidified within the cake. And you can see that baby girl is moist, okay? She doesn't need any additional moistness like a sugar water or anything that you sometimes see people add to cake to give it an additional wealth of moisture to make up for the dryness of the cake. But we don't have to do that here, y'all. Okay, our cakes are done. Okay, y'all, we are at the end of the night and we are closing out this caramelized brown sugar looking red velvet in honor of Juneteenth and to kick off this Juneteenth week, in my opinion, because we're going to be celebrating for the rest of the week over here by delving into different cultural foods that our community has held close to their hearts to celebrate and commemorate how we understood our culture, how we understood freedom, and how we obtained liberation. And so from here, you want to grab your favorite cream cheese icing, get to frosting your cake, cut a slice for the ancestors, sneak you one too, and enjoy the rest of this evening with this delicious red velvet cake.